Bless your
I'm sure.
microphone.
Yes. The answer to that question is yes.
Scotland in the summer.
If it was small. But it is pulled out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't think that, that's what's telling my friend, I was like, late March and Scotland's gonna be. Yeah, like that's right. Yeah, it's cold in the summer. I always forget. I know. Thankfully, I try to keep one in the summer. I know. I was gonna step on, definitely have one. It's like, they have one. All the time. Yeah, that'd be beautifully green.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30 on January 10th, 2023. By the way, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone. It's going to be a great year. I know we haven't met in a few months. So welcome to everyone. And I feel like it's been a while for me too. So anyhow, so appreciate everyone meeting tonight. Again, it is the first meeting of the 2023 year, January 10th. We are at 5:30 again. We are about to start the meeting for the Parks Board. So the first item we have is the public comment. I've got to ask, are there any public comments to be addressed? No. Okay, no sign up for public comments. Thank you. So moving on to Roman numeral 3, workshop. So the first item we have on here is the review of and discussion on proposed park and recreational fiscal year 2023 community special events. So Brianna will be giving the report. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody. For those who don't know me, which is not many, I'm Brianna, the event production manager for the city of Sugar Land. Today, I will be going over the FY23 special events. The agenda for today will include an overview of the special events, which will include our annual events and our upcoming pop-up projects. We also will have general information about each event and then fun facts for those. And I also want to welcome our team, our special events team. I'll introduce them later on in the PowerPoint as well. So this right here is a snapshot of all of our special events that we plan for the year. It's a lot about full. The grayed out ones, and I'll go through all of these in detail, but the grayed out ones are the ones that we've already completed for this fiscal year. The other ones are just a listing of what is coming up from spring until October. This calendar typically includes, and you'll see on your the ones that you have, it includes 19 plus events. They pop up sometimes randomly with ceremonial events that we have throughout the year. We try to cover every month throughout the year. The only one that we miss is January, and that's because we pretty much have our planning workshop where we discuss what we're going to do for the year during that time. There's various times throughout the day for most of our events. We touch on all locations, Smart Financial Center, Town Square Plaza, and most of our community parks. And then we have various sizes for our events. They range from anywhere from 25 people to 25,000 people on site for some of these events. Additionally, we do handle our block party trailer reservations. So those happen depending on which weekend the HOAs want to use them. We also do ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, etc. I'll cover the groundbreakings that are coming up in the spring of this year, also in the slides as well. All right, so first we'll go over the winter events. Those are the events that we've already completed, but I'll still mention them so you can kind of see what they were. These included our Imperial Park Recreation Center's Haunted House. They did a really good job with that event. They pretty much turned the multi-purpose rooms into a full-blown haunted house where they had various themed activities, on-site vendors in the gym, and then the haunted house itself was a ticketed attraction. It ran for 3 days right before Halloween. Next up, we had our Gold Star Memorial unveiling, the monument unveiling. The monument is beautiful, as you can see here. We had a short ceremony in partnership with the Legacy Foundation and Woody Williams Foundation. This event is usually the pop-up events are shorter events. They're usually about an hour. It includes a small program with speakers, and then we have an unveiling and any photo opportunities at that time. To cover most of our Christmas events for the year, we had our Christmas tree lighting event, and we also had our senior holiday gala. The Christmas tree lighting event happens right here in Sugar Land Town Square. It's pretty much the start or the kickoff of the Christmas season with holiday shopping and things like that. This includes holiday themed activities. It's a 5 to 8 p.m. event. At the end of the event, we light the tree, 40-foot Christmas tree inside of the plaza. And last year we had a fireworks show. We're gonna play with some ideas for FY23. We may not have a fireworks show again, maybe lasers. We'll see what we end up with. And also we have our senior holiday gala, which is really fun, really nice. Our TD Harmon Center does a really good job with that. It's located at the Sugar Land Marriott, and it's the one big event where the seniors get to dress up really nice, have fun dancing and things like that. Next up is our spring events. These are the ones that are coming up now. So kicking off the year, we have our spring season sugar gala. That's our daddy-daughter dance that happens at the Imperial Park Recreation Center. That picture shows the one from last year. They decorate the gym of the recreation center really nicely, where they carpet it out so it doesn't feel like a gym when you walk in. They have things hanging from the ceiling. The lighting is very different, and so it's pretty much a magical atmosphere for the kiddos. They do have sweet treats and dancing. It's pretty much a very nice party vibe. Then next we have our Chess Fest. The Chess Fest will be right here in Sugar Land Town Square. This is our 3rd year hosting it. We've transitioned and toyed with it a little bit from tournaments and now to like a full-blown festival. It will have face painting, community booths, and on some mini chess activities on site throughout the day. Next is our International Art and Kite Festival. This event is growing as we have it. We're transitioning it this year from Brazos River Park to the Crown Festival site. It's gonna be a really big event for us. Last year we had the Ferris wheel. I don't know if we're gonna have the Ferris wheel again, but I could not put a picture of the Ferris wheel. The Ferris wheel was on site last year. We also have cultural performers, diverse food vendors. We have kids activities on site. We may have some adult beverages and things like that for the parents. So we'll have that for you coming up fairly soon in March. The next event is our PARCS event series. It's the Party at the Plaza. That one is held at Smart Financial Center. The Party at the Plaza series kind of takes place at different parks throughout the year. I'll show you some of the other ones later on. Some of them are geared towards Yappy Hour. Some of them are the Bikes and Brews, etc. But this one will be Party at the Plaza. And the theme for this one is centered around the live entertainment. So we'll probably have a band on site with some food trucks, and we also showcase the splash pad. And for my favorite time of the year, the summer events. First, we kick off the summer with our traditional Memorial Day ceremony. That one takes place right in Sugar Land Memorial Park. The highlight, obviously, for this year will be the monument that we just unveiled. We'll probably talk about that a lot during that program. But for this event, we do have a full community program that usually takes place for an hour. The first 30 minutes of the program is nothing but light music, and then we have some at the end. We have community booths on site, military vehicles, etc. And it's kind of like a nice moment where you can relax in the park. The next PARCS event series is our Food Truck Friday at Sugar Land Memorial Park. This one we have DJ entertainment for, and it takes place right here with the new lighting, the festoon lighting that the Parks Development crew put in. For this one, we have long games, and last year we had a bubble entertainer on site. We'll play with it and see if we just have to do that again. And for our largest event that takes place within our lineup, which is our Red, White, and Boom, we have this one at the Crown Festival Park. Usually about 20 to 25K on site for this one. So it's a massive event. It takes the work of every single department within the city. Food, family, fun, and fireworks is kind of what we're geared towards because it's so many people on site. We don't want the lines to be super long. We have tons of food trucks on site. We have a main stage, some children's activities, tons of community booths, and we do have some VIP areas or cooling stations. This event, we used to say that this had the largest fireworks show in Fort Bend County. I feel like we may also still have the largest fireworks show in Fort Bend County, but we say that because it does have 10 to 12 inch shells within our show. And there's no other vendor or community area that can support the size of 12-inch shelves. So we'll see if we can continue to hold that claim. And then here we have our fall events. Our fall events will include, it's pretty much the wrap up of our fiscal year. It ends in September, but it does include several events that happen in August and September. The first one is going to be our Bikes and Brews. This one takes place in Brazos River Park. It's geared towards our bikes associations and the biking trails that are located in that park. We have a beer sponsor on site. That's one of the pictures from last year when we hosted it. Last year we hosted it during the start of construction. So we had it at the top in the Brazos, the bowl area. I'm not sure if we're going to do that again this year. We may play with the layout and it may be in a different area. And new this year, I found these cool pictures online. Don't hold me to these pictures. They're beautiful. We're gonna host a placemaking event right here in Sugarland Town Square. We've already reserved a date and now we're gonna begin to plan for it. But it's pretty much a global public or participatory art project where we take certain parking spaces in the area and we turn them into makeshift parks. So we want to try this out and see how it goes. Hopefully you guys can all attend this one. And last but not least is our fall festival. This is fairly new to us. It started off as an online virtual event only because of COVID. Last year we did have this in person and it was a fun time right here in Sugarland Town Square. Themed activities all geared towards fall. We had a corn maze on site, inflatable within Town Square. It was pretty massive, so it looked nice. Artisan booths, and we also have fall beverages like brews and things like that. Some of the Town Square tenants sometimes participate in this event to make it more of a festive theme. And this will show you what the look ahead for the pop-up ceremonial events look like. These events they usually come up, we call them pop-ups because they usually take a month or 3 months to plan them. But for the spring season, these are the 1, 2, 3, 4 projects that we have that are coming up. The dates are still to be determined, so I don't have those yet, but we will have them anytime between January and March, or at least that's what we're anticipating. The ribbon cutting for the drainage improvements in Greatwood will take place. The groundbreaking of the first Colony Trail and Bridge. We have the pump track in phase 3 of the Brazos River Park project. And then we have the Go 8 project grand opening. All of those will take place fairly soon. What we will do, because we don't have those dates right now, they'll be in your director's notes when you get them moving forward. But we are in the planning process. We're initial stages of gathering the dates and picking out timelines and things like that. And here is our recent award winnings for 2022, 2023. It shows you, I'm not gonna go through the full list, but it shows you some of the awards that we've won. International Festival and Events Association is one of our associations that we're part of. The Texas Festival and Events Association, and newly added, we went to the Texas Association of Fairs and Events, and we won some for that one as well. So kudos to the team. I will go ahead on this slide and introduce to you some of our team members, because I did have them come for this presentation because we only probably present once or twice a year. We have Liz, who's our full-time event coordinator. I'm sorry, part-time event coordinator. I like to think she's full-time. All the time, she's at every event. She's technically part-time. And then we have Venetia, our temporary part-time position. Hopefully we can get it instated as a part-time position that will be here for long term, but right now it's a temporary position. And then also, who's not in attendance, we have Carla. I'm sure she was stuck in traffic somewhere. Carla is our full-time event coordinator, but she's also our champion employee of the year this year for 2023. So kudos to her. And you can see her on the pictures. And with that, I will go ahead and take any questions or discussions. Let me know if y'all have any questions.
Any questions?
Just congratulations.
Yeah. So I do have the list of all the awards. Is that from this year?
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations to y'all. That's fantastic.
Organization, several submissions, all of them by Carla. But yes, she pretty much submitted whatever we wanted to move forward, and that's where we rank. Some of them are regional awards, the two Texas ones, and then the other one is on the international level.
Well, every time I'm on the festival sites, and all the events, I see every one of y'all, the lovely faces, always there, always there.
Sweating.
Y'all look so together, though.
Listen, not sweating.
Joan?
I don't have a question or comment. Every event I've been to is just so well run and so well done. So thank you, Brianna and team. Because there's such a joy to attend.
Thank you, and we do appreciate that. I mean, these events take the village to put on. It's not just our internal people. We do have a lot of different departments and divisions that help us out. William and his crew phone ministers out there sometimes. And I do appreciate PARCS for helping out when they can, as far as for helping us out with some of the judging and showing face and always being there to support as well.
We're happy to do it.
Any other questions, comments?
I had just a quick question.
Yeah.
This is a very full calendar, so I'm not suggesting that you add anything to your plan. However, I just wondered if there's ever any kind of nomination in January to celebrate Lunar New Year or an event around that, just in our community. If there's,
So I do think that sometimes we do have community celebrations that's not put on by me, unfortunately. But the Tea Department Center does something at the senior center usually for Lunar New Year. I'm not sure if Town Square does anything. I haven't seen anything pop up just yet, but we probably do have something around the community that I haven't planned, but technically it's part still happening. Sure.
cool, thank you.
Yeah, so comment, I do appreciate this list.
Yeah, it is.
Going up on my fridge, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
It doesn't cover some of the senior center or rec center events, but it does at least give you a little bit of a snapshot of what we have coming up. Like I said, the ceremonial events will continue to push out the dates as we get those, but those are the ones that we know are gonna happen.
Yeah, great.
well, thank you for all the hard work. I mean, because I see all of y'all there, every single event with a big old smile on your face. That's all I see.
You don't see the behind the stick.
No. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And Carla did make it.
Hey. Thank you all so much. Y'all do a great job. Appreciate it. Next item we have on here is item B, review of and discussion of Cullinan Park projects. So Mr. William Hydrick will be presenting for the, William Anderson family. I'm sorry.
It's a team effort.
It's a team effort. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So. And it's easier name.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Feng Du. I think I have met all of you. Good to see you. Happy New Year. So we have been working really hard on Cullinan Park. Kelsey knows for all these years. And then the last time we give you the detailed update was about a year ago. So we are very happy to give you another update. Cullinan Park Development Project has been a very unique project to us. It demonstrates the collaboration and the partnership among three entities: City of Sugar Land, Cullinan Park Conservancy, and the City of Houston. I'm going to explain the collaboration history briefly on the next slide. But overall, City of Sugar Land is responsible for the operation and maintenance of the park. And the Cullinan Park Conservancy is responsible for fundraising for the capital improvements. And certainly City of Houston and Houston Parks Board actually own this 755 acres of parking lot. So that's a kind of a general overview of the entities. So back in May 2015, City of Sugar Land and the Cullinan Park Conservancy signed an MOU. And then in June 2015, City of Sugar Land and the City of Houston signed an interlocal agreement Under these two documents actually are the foundation of the park annexation. And also they clearly state the roles and the responsibilities of the three entities. That's kind of the foundation how we work through over these years. Under this partnership, we were able to successfully complete the phase 1 development by 2019 with the donation from Conservancy, which was about more than $1.2 million. So for phase 1, very briefly, it includes a restroom. Everybody wanted that at that time, and with the associated underground utilities. In addition to that, we were able to clear the understory to have the entrance enhancement and also better views to the White Lake. We also were able to add some site furnishing, donor recognition signage. We also added a third miles of trails, a concrete walking trails with the overlook and the boardwalk. So this project was done right before the pandemic, just in time. So during the pandemic, when a lot of people kind of struggle with limited social gathering opportunities, a lot of people, residents and visitors, they were able to come to enjoy nature at Colony Park. And the visits actually was 2.3 times more than before. So it was a huge success and good time. Moving on to phase 2, right after the phase 1 completion, the Colony Park Conservancy hired a TBG to do the conceptual design for phase 2. And then soon after that, we were able to add more interpretive signage and wayfinding signage for the education and the wayfinding in the park, because a lot of people get lost and a lot of people are curious about the ecosystem explanation and the history of the park. And then that signage was actually funded by a grant called the Cameron Foundation grant that Conservancy successfully was awarded, and we also assisted in this grant application. So in December 2020, Colony Park Conservancy donated another check of $230,500 to fund the design development and construction documentation. Last October, they wrote another check of $1 million, $237,000 to fund the construction, phase 2 construction. To date, the total donation is $200 million, $733,847.49. We really appreciate the hard work the Conservancy, especially the board members, have been doing, including our dear Kelsey. And we also appreciate all the donors that have been donating their money and to make the Colony Park a greater nature destination. More details on the phase 2 development, mainly it's going to include, it's going to include some 30 heading parking spaces along the entry road. And then there will be a small 45-space parking lot, southwest side of the restroom. And then it's going to include 1.2 miles of trails, including both concrete trails and a decomposed granite loop trail for jogging and walking. For the trails, actually, this we also assisted the Conservancy to get a recreation grant from Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. So that's a reimbursable grant of $200,000. So we will be able to get the reimbursement after we build the 1.2 miles of improved. For the parking, as I mentioned earlier, the park usage has skyrocketed since during the pandemic, since the phase 1 development. So everybody agreed that the parking is not enough. So we have been putting parking as one of the highest priorities for phase 2. That's why we are adding 75 parking spaces. We know there will be more park users, but we just have to work within our budget, and also we have to be very cautious about, dodging the wetlands, dodging the the archaeology sites and, we don't want to take out the trees. So we just have to be very careful about the environment. As you can see, we also try to, split the parking spaces to smaller areas so that when you enter the park, the parking is not so dominant, but it's still easy to find and easy for people to use to get to their, either trails or restroom or future improvements. So that's kind of the general layout of phase 2. We are actually in the construction stage right now. The general contractor is Millis Development and Reconstruction. We actually got 5 bids last summer. Millis was the lowest bidder. However, we were actually $600,000 short on budget, even with Millis being the lowest bid. So has the lowest bid. So within a very short amount of time, the Collin Park Conservancy worked really, really hard to fundraise additional $600,000 so that we were able to award this contract in time. I have a list of the funding sources, mainly other than the $200,000 from the TBWD Parks and Wildlife Department grant. The rest is all the funding from the donation from the Collin Park Conservancy. A small portion of it was the remaining funds from phase 1. Millis actually did the phase 1 construction and they did a very good job. So we are very excited that they are working on phase 2. They kicked off the construction right before Christmas. We anticipate the substantial completion will be the middle of June, and then the project will be complete July of this year. Just want to mention that because of this tight budget issue, we had add alternates in the bid, and the current funding is not covering those, including the trailhead monument art, the site furnishing, including the benches and the trash cans. The Conservancy is still trying to get additional donations to be able to fund those areas. That is the phase 2. And then for phase 3, the Conservancy actually hired the TBG to do a conceptual design for phase 3, which is going to be a nature exploration area. We're going to integrate that area with part of the phase 2 trails. It's going to provide an interesting kind of nature themed amenities for the kids and the families to be able to explore, learn, and interact with. It's not going to be a traditional playground. It's going to have more creative elements and unique customized elements, and they will, have kind of welcome more kids and with like younger age. So we think the cost will be roughly about $1 million, and the Conservancy is still working on the fundraising. As soon as the funding is in place, we will be able to start the schematic design. So with that, that's kind of a quick overview of the Collin Park development, and I'm going to turn to William to talk about another related project.
Evening, happy New Year.
Thank you.
I do also want to mention on another development project that was in the director's report a lot was the 2 bridges that were installed with GCWA, Gulf Coast Water Authority grant, basically, or basically a donation rather than a grant. But there was probably about $850,000 worth of bridges that went in at Collin Park across Old Oyster Creek. And that gets you users to the segment across the way of Oyster Creek, and then the other segment back across it, Red Gully. So it really opened up a bunch more land. It probably added 2-3 more miles of trail. And we're just getting started. And that's just the trail to get you to the bridges and to Red Gully and back. And so we're mowing that. It's well used. It's well liked, well used, and the bridges just turned out so well. And as you know, in-house, we did the abutments, the approach work in-house to save some money, because UCWA was like, we're done spending money on y'all, and we had to raise them significantly, right? So my staff did such a wonderful job working with our engineering department to get the approaches done. They're done, their grass is growing, and it looks awesome. And users, that's just, and that helped with the expanse of the park, right? Colin just mentioned what 20% gains at this park since COVID. And that's just helped giving the users more to be able to spread out some more. And they're just loving it. My staff have just really been working overdrive maintaining this park. With the restrooms going in and then trails and more heavily used, you can't even really tell that there's more heavy use out there. I think my staff is just doing a wonderful job taking care of the restrooms, taking care of the trails. We've treated the White Lake with some herbicides to get the vegetation down. Then we got a major drought, and that was something else. And then now it's finally starting, the levels are coming back up, and we're looking at doing some fish stocking out there. I talked to my lake manager to give me a proposal for some fish stocking out there. And but it did give the lake a chance to reset. And so and so it's looking better out there. But we got an opportunity while it was dry though to pick up a bunch of trash that we normally wouldn't get to, or that had sunken down like glass sinks that we weren't able to get to. And we picked up a lot out there. So instead of the yearly kayak adventure that I make Jorge do with me, we did the yearly walkthrough this time. And we didn't use kayaks this year, but and White Lake is just looking really good. And then we were able to just recently finish the boardwalk project. I think Joe's got that in the director's report coming up, but we just finished doing a big rehab on that boardwalk. Anyways, I digress. Okay, next project. Not a parks project per se, but in parks property. Airport is working on phase 2 of a tree remediation plan. But if I were to back up just a step or two and just talk about a little bit of history on this, if y'all recall back in 2020, 11 trees were identified by the FAA to be removed for airport runway clearances. As y'all know, Cullinan Park is just adjacent to the Sugarland Regional Airport. And we work closely with the airport on all of our projects. We brought a water line through the airport property, connected to their water line, brought it under Oyster Creek to feed the restrooms. So the restrooms are getting supplied by potable water from basically the airport. You know, we have a meter on it, but it came from the airport, and they're very cooperative with us. So we're constantly working together. We've always worked together with the airport. They're such a close neighbor of ours. And of course we share a large, property with them as well. And so back in 2020, if y'all remember, we did target airport, removed 11 trees with their funding. And then we went in and with the park's assistance, we planted 16 hardwood trees in non-runway areas of the park. So that was done in 2020. And then in 1991, the Cullinan Master Plan does ultimately identify a runway clearance zone required by the FAA. So this is something that we've known about for quite some time. And then the airport kind of came to us just pretty recently. And so in 2021, the FAA identified 150 obstruction points, trees, all requiring to be removed to prevent major impacts to runway 17. And then airport did conduct an aerial and ground survey of all these identifying points. And 6.7 acres south of the road, of the park entry road, need to be removed. And 34 trees north of the road need to be removed, and 1 tree needs to be pruned back. A pecan tree needs to be pruned back. And this is all due to restrictions of the airspace. And this is all coming from the FAA requirement, not the airport, not Sugarland, not parks, all by the FAA. So we Parks Department worked with airport, of course, and communications department and the Cullinan Conservancy to notify and come out with a uniform message about this project that's coming up. The airport's been working really hard on signage. You can see a copy of the signage that's going to go out there on site. It's going to direct people to a QR code that is going to go to a city website that explains the project. It explains that this is not part of phase 2 project that Funland just went over. Even though they might happen concurrently, this is a totally separate project. This project of tree removals will not impact the park as far as closures go or trail closures go that I'm aware of at this time. It will not impact phase 2. It will, there's 2 Funland overlaid phase 2 trails over this tree removal project. And there was 2 trees that about 5 to 10 feet away from one future trail. we believe, talking to the airport, that that tree would be removed well before that contractor needs to work on that trail section. The way we're coordinating things, the way that we've worked with Millis Development, me and Fonlin have been part of all the pre-bid and pre-con meetings for this project. We're trying to do a seamless job, not interfering with the contract, and then not interfering with any park closures. There may be a road closure, but most of the contracting work is going to come from the airport, and they have a bridge and they can cross Worcester Creek and they can come through a gate to get to this cleared area. The airport did notify City of Houston via letter, and this contract was over the $50,000 mark, so it went out to public bid, and it did go to City Council for approval just recently. City Council approved it. Again, we're working with communications to put that sign out there that will look similar to that, 36 inches by 36 inches minimum. It's going to go on 1 or 2, 4x4 posts and go on either side of the clearing area. We want to focus that this project is separate from the parks project that we're doing now. And I think it directs them to a QR code, would again frequently asked questions that explains the project. It explains that this is not the project that Parks is doing with Millis Development, and why this project has to happen. Just to explain, to be removed, that 6.7 acres does need to be removed entirely. They will chip most of the debris on site and give it back to Mother Nature. It's the trees are in violation of the clearance issue, so that's why we need to bring it down. The airport does, FAA required. And then the 35 trees you see on the left in the green little symbols, those are removed. And then the 12002 on the far left is just trim. It is a 48-inch pecan tree. It is trim only. About 8 to 10 feet needs to be trimmed off of that pecan, the height of it. It is not going to be removed. And so me and Fonlin had a pre-con meeting today with the airport and the contractor that won the job. He won both sides of the road. It was 2 separate contracts, but he won both sides. And me and Fonlin were very clear on our expectations on the parks end and all communication wise. And that contractor, it's not his first rodeo, and he definitely understands the sensitivity of it. He understands me and Fonlin's criteria, and he understands he needs to, surgically remove the north side trees and not harm the other trees around it. And we need to definitely keep safety as number one priority, number one. And the good news is anytime I or Fonlin sees a safety issue, we can shut it down. We can get with Ken in the airport and Mitch, and we can shut it down. But we don't foresee that being a problem. But just know that the airport and Fonlin and I and Joe will be out there watching their contractors, because they're on our lease land, so to speak. It's not our land, it's City of Houston's property, but it's like our land. It's like our home. So we're going to be watching it like it were our contractors working in our home. So airport is committed to install a native hardwood trees, low-lying, low-growing native hardwood trees and shrubs to help buffer the views from the road to the Cullen Airport because of the clearings that it's going to cause. And we're exploring with the airport planting a pocket prairie with native ornamental grasses to diversify the natural habitat and beauty of the park. And we are working with the airport, me and Fonlin, on all of our trials and tribulations on wildflower seeding and trying to give them the best means and methods to the native grass seed the area. We are kind of steering away from wildflower seeding because wildflower seeding requires a little bit more attention to detail, and it requires you to mow like 3 times a year and certain times of the year. The airport said that they would rather just mow on a consistent schedule. They want to mow this area, 6.7 acres, not William mow. They're going to mow on a more consistent schedule. And you can't mow consistently with wildflowers. It is very timely when you mow wildflower areas. So we're looking at picking the native grass as our option on that. And we're working with airport on how that ground needs to be prepped after the trees are removed. The trees are going to not only get removed, but they're going to get stump ground, 18 inches below grade. And there's going to be a lot of wood chips. But me and Fonlin are wondering the seeds on growing on wood chips before they decompose. So we're talking to the airport about bringing in some topsoil to kind of help them in those wood chips. We do believe wood chips are great fertilizer, but no doubt, but not until they break down. So Fonlin and I are gonna work with the airport to get a screening of trees, shrubs, like trees established. Get some temporary irrigation and or water them with the potable water that we have at Cullinan Park. We have water trailers, the airport's got one, I've got one, and then the wildflower seeding. The native grass seeding would be done with me and Fonlin's guidance as to for all the experience that we've done planting seeding at Brazos River Park. And by the way, Brazos River Park, we put another 100 pounds of seed out there, Fonlin, this fall, winter.
Yeah.
So we really feel like we're gonna have a really bang up spring at Brazos River Park using some new methods that we're trying out. But timeline, according to the pre-con meeting today, the contractor's ready to get started in the next week or two. Hopefully be finished by March. They're a little eager on when they want to finish, but with weather and all that, the airport's expecting March of 2023. And then they'll be completely done. And then, of course, Fonlin's phase 2 project will extend further past that. And then ideally this spring, before it gets too hot, get these native trees and the native grass seeds growing. And so with that, I'd like to answer, and Fonlin as well, any questions that you'll have on either of these projects that I spoke about. Yes, sir.
Regarding the airport, so the area that you shaded for removal, that's clearing grubbing the entire site of that 6.7 acres. So once the contractor goes in there, clearing grubs down to 18 inches entirety, and then you're gonna come back and provide plantings with a native tree. So what height restrictions are you looking at then?
Yeah, good questions. If I may, that is correct. This whole area will be cleared right in here. Only the stumps will be grounded 18 inches, so not the whole site, 18 inches. So that just the tree stumps will be grounded 18 inches, stump ground 18 inches. And that's an FAA requirement. I like stump grinding too, but that is an FAA requirement. Most of the tree plantings would be the smaller type shrub trees like wax myrtles and Walters viburnum that do not grow past about 20-25 feet, and that's in a good genetics. And that would be along the road. The further we move away from the runway, the more the height restriction is. So we looked at doing a screening here, and it was like 9 feet was restriction, and I couldn't find a good tree that grew 9 feet and less unless you pruned the heck out of a ligustrum like every year. And they don't want to prune it. I definitely don't want to prune. So along the road, and it's about 20, 30 feet. And it really depends. Every foot you get away from the runway is another high layer you can go up higher. And that's why it's a significantly less amount of trees that we need to remove on the north side of the road as the south side of the road. There's still lots and lots of trees on the north side of the road. They will not be touched, just the ones you see highlighted, because the clearances get higher as you move away from the runway.
So as a follow-up question to that, so once you clear and grub that whole site, you plant it down. So is FAA restrictions also have no requirements for no other structures there? Meaning, can you have trails through there or no?
Yeah, great question. We asked about that. In the airport, we were asking them about a parking lot, and they were basically saying that the FAA doesn't want a parking lot because that means there's cars there. And if the airplane misses his approach, he hits a bunch of cars. We can't have lighting because he hits a light pole, and the light poles are too high off the ground. So there was very few options that we had. They wanted a soft pallet for landing aircraft if they exceed the runway.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
I wonder, so the area in brown that's to be removed, is it gonna be a hard clearance like on the perimeter of the trees, or will there be like an attempt to kind of formulate kind of a natural curvy line or something like on the edges? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it's gonna go from forest to nothing.
It probably will look like that. We talked to pre-con meeting today. They talked a little bit about smoothing those edges, but it will probably be a pretty hard line.
Yeah.
A slight curvature due to the.
Yeah, that's actually a good observation. We actually talked about it today. At this north is actually this way. So the west edge, it's closer to a kind of a ditch and a wetland area. And the airport is going to try to preserve a few more trees. So that edge will be a little bit soft. The other edge, I think, between the clearance, it might look a little bit harder, but we can kind of try to use the grasses and the shrubs to make it softer.
The trees will be about 30 gallon. We're trying to get the airport to go a little bit above 15 gallon to 30 gallon. And the airport's considering that. They have a budget they have to stay within. This is not an FAA grant. This is a FAA requirement that the airport's having to do. And they're not happy about it either. It's costing them a lot of money. But I will say that that screening is mostly plant. Some people call them plants, but they are trees like wax myrtle, Walters viburnum. And then in between, Poland's design that she at the airport had like Turk's caps and native stuff mixed in. So I think it's gonna be we're trying to make it a smoother transition. Kelsey.
As I recall, we're trying to discourage people from going in that space, right? While in that gap between the tree clearing finishing up and the planting getting established, how are we gonna keep people out of there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that I can keep people out. I can't even keep people out when I'm doing construction. Phase one, they went around, they built a trail around my orange fence that was 10 foot in the woods and packed it down like deer do. So I don't know that I can keep people out other than just trying not to make it encouraging to go in. Yeah, and I don't think after construction, my understanding, it's not dangerously unsafe for people to go in that area. We just don't want to encourage people hanging out in there. And we're not going to build anything in those areas to try to encourage that. During construction, it's up to the contractor. And that was very clear to them in this pre-con meeting today, that it's their job to keep their areas secure and safe, not my job. But if I told them that people are going to go in their construction area and they need to have spotters and watchers, they're this is definitely not their first project in a public space. They're very aware of people's habits. Good questions, though. Yes, ma'am.
So what is there existing today in that area to be removed? Is it just trees? What
Great question.
trees?
It's mostly younger type trees because it was a cleared area at one time. It's just become overgrown. And so it's not old established trees that I can see when I walk through there. I see a lot of 12-inch and 18-inch hackberry, tallow. It's not all hackberry and tallow. There's a little bit of elm in there, a couple of pecans. There's nothing that's huge and ginormous like that big pecan by the restroom. And then there's some underlying brush, but it's not much because it's so shaded out. On the edges, you've got the ragweed, which we all hate, but because they like the sun, so it's growing on the edges. That's about it that's in there. Underneath, there's a little bit of poison ivy, a little bit, maybe a yopon or two. I didn't see very many. It's just all so shaded out from the trees. They're not really old trees, though. When I say old, I mean, I'm not seeing anything there. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not seeing anything over 10, 15, 20 years old.
That's probably about right. It used to be grazed, I think, a long time ago for cattle, and so it was pretty well. It's mostly volunteer trees and just things that have sprouted up in the last like 30 years. So they're not real big.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Just a thought, I've been in other states where I've saw this, but if you just put native prairie grass that, we've got some in a roundabout by Oxbow, that roundabout there. I don't know what, I assume that's native. I don't know, but kind of 3-4 foot tall, that people could see, and all that was native prairie grass. I don't think anybody would care about going in there.
Yeah.
I think if the less interesting you make it, like don't try to make the Turk's cap and the cute little flowers and photo op sort of plants. If you just make it something boring, I think people will end up not going in there at all, but
Okay.
that's just a guess.
That's a good
Right.
point.
Yeah, we are only gonna do the Turk's Cap and stuff up by the road.
Oh,
So,
okay.
We really hope, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about that earlier, but yeah, we really won't have too much interesting off the road, too far off the road.
Yeah.
And it will be we're really trying for a pocket prairie, because if we don't pocket prairie it, we're afraid it's just gonna be a kind of a bunch of non-native or invasive weeds. So we're really trying to do grasses to kind of give the pocket prairie approach.
It's more like a little blue stem, big blue stem, it's from far away, it will kind of look uniform and different from weeds. But people won't feel very interested to actually go inside to look at the grass.
Where do you get your native grass seeds?
Well, we normally use the Friedrich, the wild seed farm from
Fredericksburg.
Fredericksburg. Yeah.
We've had a better luck with that seed
Yeah.
in Fredericksburg, and I actually went there. I actually went there and did a visit of their farm. It's awesome. And we really, me and Phil Lynn have noticed a better germination rates from that farm in our experience than wild seed farms.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
then the American native
American
seed.
native seed, sorry. Wallasey Farms in Fredericksburg seems to be our go-to. And relatively, good pricing too.
So assume that you're gonna have no parking signs on that portion of the road as well, because if they FAA doesn't want any cars parked there.
There are already no parking signs all along
Okay.
that entry road to College Park.
Okay, because I mean, I still, when I go run over there, the cars are parked all along that street, because obviously there's limited parking, so they're just kind of finding their way
Yeah.
in.
And there already is signage along the road.
Yeah.
A little bit more if we need to, but we're really hoping the extended, the pull-in parking in the parking lot in the road is really gonna help that parking along the street issue.
Okay.
But you're right, we will put up more signs if we need to. Good point.
Any other questions, comments? No, Franlin, thank you so much for the all the breakdown of the phase 1 and 3 and on additional projects as well. This is great progress, and I have to say, over the years, I've been running this area since City of Houston had managed it when it was a little scary. And the transformation from back in the 2000s all the way through now is just unbelievable. So I think I've been doing a great job of transformation. The Conservancy, I mean, the donations I've been providing for this transformation, unbelievable. I'm just ecstatic. It's now 180 degrees for me in my eyes. It's from not so safe to I want to go there every weekend. So thank y'all.
Jim, thank you, and I'll make sure to pass that along to staff. Thank you, sir.
So last item is the director's report. Mr. Joe Cheshire, Director of Public Parks and Recreation.
Good evening and happy new year once again. Okay, we've had a lot of progress going on, not just at Cullinan Park, but throughout the park system. And at Brazos River Park, Jenna, we were talking about it before we started here, because he's run there, so he's seeing all the things that are going on there. So wanted to update everybody on kind of the activities that are going on out there. If you hadn't been out there in the last few weeks, it's going to start looking a lot different. We've got the playground is getting ready to go in starting January 30th is the scheduled date to start being installed there at the park. And the playground itself has a structure, a larger structure for, these are the older age groups here, generally a 5 to 12 age group. Although, you know, you can be older than 12 and go there. If you're adults are welcome. So, you know, swings, we always get criticized for not having enough swings in our park. So we wanted to go with a 3-bay swing. So you got a small tot swings with the little buckets, then regular strap swings for kids. And then there's also a, what do you call that?
Freedom
It's a
swing.
Freedom swing. It's it's primarily for special needs children and can sit with their parents and face each other. And so it's a kind of a unique swing that's going to go in here. This is the smaller structure. This is kind of considered 2 to 5 kind of a structure. And this one's got a boat theme to it since we're along the river. So I thought that would be kind of a good tie in there. And then this is a really interesting feature here. It's a metal frame and it's got a climbing net on the inside of it. It's called a Berliner, is the manufacturer of that one. And so and it's going to be kind of centered on the main access walkway that you come from the overlook. So you'll see this is kind of it's a really interesting, architecturally, it's really interesting, as well as being a play structure. So really excited to get this in. So probably they will be well on their way to getting this completed in February, assuming the weather, you know, was cooperative with us out there. And then this is the pavilion that'll be from the entry road. You're kind of on this picture on the right, you're basically on the entry drive looking through the pavilion, and the playground, that Berliner structure will be basically lined up right through the middle, and you'll see that on the other side of the picnic pavilion that's going in here. And then these pictures were taken just the other day, but William and I were out there this morning, and They already have the roof structure going on to the pavilion. And this pavilion will also have stone wrapped columns on it. So it'll tie in architecturally with the restroom building that you kind of see in the background there. So architecturally, we think it'll be a really nice attraction to the park. And the elevations are interesting out there. It looked really flat until we started doing the design with our consultant on that and realized there was quite a bit more slope to it than meets the eye. So the stairs in the front really give it a kind of it perches it up, gives it a nice feel. Scale wise, it's really nice out there, because before it felt like it was just so wide open, and it kind of needed something to kind of make you feel like you were in a kind of an enclosure almost. And so this will help really tie that whole area together. So this looks out onto the overlook. And one of the things that we did work together on with picking the playground equipment out, we really tried to go with a color scheme that would really tie to the tile mosaic that's on the overlook wall. So we've got some accent colors on it. We didn't want a real bright structure out there. So most of the colors on the play structure are pretty subdued, kind of natural looking colors, but there's some elements on it that'll tie into some of the blues and oranges and reds that are on the overlook mural. So I think that'll be a really nice setting there for the park. And right now, it looks like they could be done by mid-March. I think originally their schedule called going through April, but weather's been good. The contractor's been really staffing it well. They took a little bit of break during the holidays, but they've really hit it hard here the last week or so. So we think if the weather holds, this should be finished early and also be finished in March. This is a project, I'm give hats off to William on this project. He really headed this up. If you've been to the Cullinan Boardwalk, you know that the wood on the deck and the rails was definitely showing its age. It was over 30 years old. We had gone in and our staff had done some board replacements here and there, but it was the wood was rotting out faster than we could replace it. So we had some funds in our park rehabilitation funding this past year to be able to do this, and went out to bid. Got a really good contractor, and actually with the water of the lake drying out, it kind of gave the contractor a chance to get down underneath it. And get much better access to everywhere that they would need to be able to work on the decking there, and it just turned out really nice. It looks like it's almost brand new now. It really was a nice addition to the park. So hopefully the water will come back in the lake soon, and we'll have really pretty views there at Cullinan. The pump track. So everybody knows about the pump track. We've had a lot of discussions. University of Houston was a challenging partner with us on this project, because we had to really appease them a lot. They had a lot of concerns with the safety elements of this type of feature. So worked really hard with not only our park staff. William worked really closely with the consultants and the contractor, because it's a design build, because it's a real specialty construction. So we had to use the company that would design it as well as build it. And so worked with them to get all the engineering seals and everything that was required. And our economic development department was very involved in this too, from the standpoint of funding for the project. And they're also they're the ones that work closely with University of Houston on all aspects of the property that we have out there. So it's a real partnership there. And so they've been working on the site about probably 3 to 4 weeks now. They were a little slow too during the holidays, but really hit it hard in the last week. We look like we'll probably be finishing up on this one, probably late February, early March, depending on weather. We've also got to do a walkway connection from the parking lot to get to the pump track, but it's coming along really well. Really impressed with the contractor that's working on it. They're from out of state. This is this is real specialty construction. So there's only a handful of people in the country that can do this. So, and the guys that are building it have said that, and they build them all over, and they said, yeah, this is going to be a really top-notch track. The design of it, the designed by the consultants that did it, he said it was top-notch. It's going to be nice and long. It's very fast. People are going to love it. Bicyclists are going to love it. So, and it should be attractive that if we can, possibly bring some competitive events to the city to utilize it. And then I won't go into events much, but we did, since Brian had covered most all of this earlier, but tree lighting was a big success this year. The weather was nice. The fireworks went off well, and we had, by estimates by the police department and our we have a it's not a program, but it's called Placer AI, and basically it counts all the cell phones in a certain area, a certain geographic area during a certain time. And so based on police estimates and our Placer AI data, we're about 8,000 to 9,000 people attended the event that night. So really good attendance at the tree lighting this year. And then also the holiday gala, which Brian also touched on. We had over 550 seniors there at the Marriott this year. Really good band. It was our staff does a really good job of pivoting on a moment's notice, and the band for this event called in like, I don't know, like an hour or two before they were supposed to show up, and said that they all had COVID and they weren't going to show up. And so we had all the seniors lined up out, outside, kind of getting ready to come in, and staff was frantically on the phone calling other bands that they had used before to see if they could round anybody up. And the Marriott staff helped us out with sound system, and our staff had to jump on their phones to get Christmas music on while the band was setting up. But the band got there and they get plugged in, and nobody knew any difference. But our staff, really pulled it off. I gotta really give them credit for pulling it off. And they do all the table decorations and everything with the seniors to try to save the money on that. So it's during COVID we weren't able to do it, and then as we transitioned back in, people were still kind of concerned, so we didn't know what our turnout would be. So we did it at our senior center last year, and our staff did a wonderful job there, but the seniors said they really liked doing it at the Marriott, so it got moved back there. So great event, and everybody had a good time. Brian also touched on the Gold Star Monument. One other thing that we do have coming up is our disc golf tournament. That's held at Imperial Park, and that'll be on January 28th. That's an annual event we do. It's kind of a partnership with the disc golf community on that. We provide some prizes and refreshments and things, and then they organize the tournament. So I think we're probably going on our 14th or 15th annual tournament down there. So pretty big event for us and everybody. And with that, I think that covers it pretty well. Of all the things that we've been up to and what we're working on. So if you have any questions.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So Joe, I know you and I briefly talked about it before the meeting regarding the zip line.
Right.
Can you give a little recap of that?
Oh yes. I think I had that on my list, and I will do it here. Okay, so everybody recalls the presentations on Go Wave, the Treetop Adventures zip line. So we've been working with them closely. They have to, there's an engineered project, so they have to go through a permitting process with the city. So they've gone through, got their permit, and it just cleared our permit office this morning. And they've already been on site, just kind of preparing, mobilizing onto the site, bringing in some of their materials. And so they've got their people on the ground here, and they bring these guys in from Europe to do this. It's kind of like a real specialty construction. So they're on site. They've got their material on site, so they're hitting it really hard right now. So they have a very optimistic schedule. I believe they weren't trying to hit being open by spring break. which is, March 11th. So it's coming up pretty fast. So it'll be interesting to see just how fast these guys work, but they are on site. We met with them about planning for a ribbon cutting ceremony out there. And looked at either like they're really interested in the spring break date. We told them we also have our Kite Fest coming up at the end of March. So if we wanted to kind of partner on that, kind of make it a splash at the opening, their opening with our Kite Fest. So we've got some good opportunities there. So fingers crossed that they can actually meet their target schedule and date on that. They still have to work on, they have a sales office also that has to go in. And so that they've still got to get that through permitting too. It doesn't require water or wastewater, so that should kind of make it a little more streamlined, but it'll require electricity. So they have to bring the electricity in, and the buildings themselves aren't really constructed on site. They're more of a constructed off site and then brought in and set in. So they will have to put the foundation in for that. But one of the interesting elements of this was that since the Brazos River Park is in the floodway, we have to do special studies called you engineers will know, hydraulics and hydrology study, H&H study, to make sure that any of the work that goes in is not going to affect the flood elevation of the river. So they hired the consultant that's worked for the city on doing flood studies along the Brazos River. And so they went in, they assessed what's going to be built on site, how it's going to be built, where it's going to be built. And then they can run models to tell them if that's going to have any effect on that flood. And so they did that. And so it's not going to have any effect on that. So that allowed them to get through the permitting process and get started.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I think Kelly also had a question.
Quick question, what is white elephant bingo?
If nobody from recreation here to speak to that, and I'm not an expert on white elephant bingo, but it looks, if you see the picture, it looks pretty interesting because they've got all I bet maybe I'm gonna speculate that when you win at bingo, you go and pick a prize and then you open it, and then the next person that wins, they can probably either open another one or they can steal it from you.
Okay.
And so that would
Thank
be
Good guess.
that's where I'm going.
Sounds like the voice of experience.
So I'm excited for my little one about the new playground at Brazos Park, and I have a couple questions. Is there going to be any seating areas around the park for parents, or is the pavilion kind of close enough? Well, that will be the seating area.
The pavilion will probably be close enough if your kids are a little older. If your kids are really more in the 2 to 5 age group on the smaller unit, you probably want to be closer by. And we did end up having some picnic tables and slabs closer and benches to it. The trees, when they go in, will be pretty small, so there won't be a whole lot of shade there. But we're trying to strategically place trees that so when they'll grow and get more shade around the playground.
There's also a berm south side of the playground, so the kids can actually go over where the parents can sit on it.
Okay,
And we
great.
have benches and picnic tables between the playground and the pavilion. And we also have the benches around that oval trail surrounding the playground.
Okay, great. I need my seating while I'm watching it. And then is the pavilion going to be available for rental from the parks when it's complete? Okay, great. Thank you.
We also designed the like a 10-foot wide trail to the pavilion and back around. And it looks like it's accessible, but it's also for like maintenance and then like food trucks to park there. Instead of parking on the road between the overlook and the park, we can the food trucks pull them in and have them serve from there. It's like 6 inches thick. And then we can also pull in our maintenance vehicles and pressure wash and clean up without running up the grass and cracking sidewalks.
There you go.
Yeah, what we were finding when we would do events there, that would really be a pinch point right there, because it's a central location, so it's great for the food trucks or whatever kind of function we have going there, the Ferris wheel, whatever you put there. But it really becomes a pinch point. So the idea was to make this arc that comes in on the backside of the pavilion from the picture. And so they can get off the main road, so we can still have traffic going down there on either side of the road, but have the food trucks back in there. And then also that way the lines you know, the lines for the food trucks can be off the road.
Get to see it and use for bikes and brews.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks.
Kelly?
Sorry. So this is off topic, but I noticed between the drought and the freeze, a lot of the plantings on the slopes near Lowe's and the freeway and 59 have totally croaked. So is there a plan? Does anybody know? Is there a plan to bring something else in that will be a little hardier, or have y'all even thought about that yet?
I think I'll let Bowman
Yeah.
address it.
Yeah, that's actually a public works project. Not even public, that's a public right of way, and then TxDOT is responsible for that project. I think there should be ways to address it, but it's not our parks.
Right, it really won't be us that would be addressing it. I mean, we can kind of speak to it just from the plant knowledge standpoint, but, and I think, and I think some of them are just deciduous and will still come back. Or they're just, or a lot of things froze back that I think will come back. Since we went from the teens to back to almost 70 degrees a week later, I'm already seeing things like greening back up. So hopefully optimistic that a lot of it comes back out.
Yeah, this, I'm thinking in particular, there was kind of a curvy concrete design that's on the slope right next to Lowe's parking lot. And I didn't know, for some reason, I thought that was ours as opposed to TxDOT, but.
It is TxDOT project, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in my opinion, because of the slope, the plant species need to be well thought out.
I agree with you.
And I think I'm hoping that either Public Works or TxDOT are able to kind of adjust. Like, for example, Wedelia will very well there. If some other species cannot really survive, and it also depends on how they water and maintain those plants.
Right.
There's a lot of things to be considered for the success of a planting area, and we are not really in charge of that. We helped during the design stage, but once we're out of it during the construction and the maintenance. So it's hard to speak about what they did and what to do. I'm just hoping that they can adjust and make it successful.
Thank you.
So I have a question regarding the festival site, all along the whole park area, the Brazos Park. Is there plans to light up? I know you and I talked about this a little bit. Is there a plan to light up all the trail systems?
Not
eventually?
currently,
No?
not currently. I mean, that might be something that demand may, you know, spur that on later on, but we don't. We haven't had the funding or really right now, we really want to keep it a sunrise to sunset park.
Okay.
And then maybe as demand grows over time, we can add more lighting to it, but it's not in our plans right now. There's lighting along the road, but it's really not along the trails yet.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
I had a question regarding what we were previously talking about with Cullinan Park. I know when we initially discussed Cullinan Park years ago, it was always supposed to be just a nature preserve with trails and everything. So I was just thinking, well, how did we get from that concept? And then now we're talking about a play area for children. I feel like that is shifting gears and creating, you know, a different concept now, adding something else to that park that wasn't initially in that. How did that all change?
Well, with the Conservancy kind of looked at, Conservancy Board primarily looked at, you know, there's deed restrictions on the site. There's certain things that are allowed and certain things that aren't allowed. And one of the elements is kind of a nature education component to it. And the plan is really, it's when we say play or play element, it's really, the intent is try to be a bit more of the learn and explore it's called a leap play, and it's learn, explore,
Play. Yeah.
adventure and play.
Well-
And so the idea is it's not gonna be like the playground equipment you saw for Bradstreet Park. It's gonna be more. It's probably a bit more interactive and kids kind of can get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
Or just kind of crawls through some things. So it hasn't been finally designed, a final design yet. It's still very conceptual. But it's kind of a way for an area that's contained that could really keep kids kind of busy and active, but also maybe connect them with nature.
So for example, if I could give example, maybe there's a little swale that's already existing that convey water. Maybe there will be some rocks and native grasses along the swale and a little bit tiny kind of pedestrian bridge over the walkway, and the kids are able to kind of play there and looking at the different native grasses, look at their shapes, colors, and also maybe they will see a little bit like a little, I don't know, creature, maybe like a, I don't know, a little kind
Lizard.
of bugs, kind of lizard, kind of jumping
Yeah.
through, and then that type of play, not like a typical from the shelf play equipment. And also I will.
That's okay.
I think I should have most already to have about, but I do want to that all the programs that are approved to be done in the Quality Park were thoroughly discussed and agreed by the board as a group. So when you ask this question, actually, trust me, the board members have discussed this specific question many times. And then the leap is kind of the result that every board member agreed on.
So the original decision for the park was done before I jumped in, but from what I gather, the rationale was at the core. Since Cullinan Park is nature, it's a passive use park by design, by restriction, but it just kind of existed for a long time. It didn't really have anything to say, here's nature, let's celebrate it. It was just a zone where people could bring picnics if they were brave enough. As the park has become more manicured, manicured might be the wrong word, more inviting, better cleaned up, maintained, more folded into the bosom of Sugarland Parks, and wanting to increase people coming and sort of diversify the audience. Right now, it's a pretty diverse audience. It's a lot of people hiking, fishing, picnicking. But one thing that Cullinan doesn't have and may never have is some sort of like formal programming to explain like, this is why the nature is important. Here's some ideas of how to engage with it. Right now, it's just all do it yourself. So I think LEAP was sort of a way of, as passively as possible, getting kids to engage with the concept of why Cullinan Park is important to explore, learn, and play in nature with natural elements, saying that it's not just a space to have a picnic. There's things you can learn and do, but you don't have to have a full-time staff there. Or a big building, nature center building. So I think that was the rationale.
I was just curious.
Yes, it did seem a bit out of left field when I started, but once people explained it, I'm like, oh, I get it. I get it now.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No? All right, well, thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it. Great meeting. So with that said, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Kelsey? Joan? Second? Okay, thank you. All right, well, the meeting for the first meeting of the year has now adjourned. Thank you all very much.
A good one.
Thank you all.
Have seconds if you want. I think looks like there's food. I'm gonna turn things off.
Oh, yeah.